Ok. Bonjour tout le monde. Je m'appelle Paul Aurel. Je suis VP Talent Success chez Believe. Je vais parler anglais pour la présentation. Désolé. Ma français, c'est un petit peu. Okay, so if I speak too fast, please let me know and I will speak slower, hopefully. Okay, so I work for a company called Believe. I don't know if anyone here is even familiar with Believe and what we do. No? A little bit, maybe. Okay. So, in fact, we're actually quite a big company here in France. We're based in the north of Paris, near Saint-Ouen. And we have actually about 700 to 800 employees here in France. So, and that's our headquarters. So we're pretty relatively a big footprint here. And we're actually a music company. So we are an international music company. And basically what we do is we work to develop artists and labels around the world. And so we are a little bit different than a lot of other music companies. First of all, we were a company that was very digital when all of the revolution to be digital was a thing. And one of the other things that we are very different from some of the major ravecore companies out there is that we invest heavily in supporting local artists in the local markets, which I'll explain a little bit. This is a little bit about why Docebo is such a good fit for us. And also, what we try to do is we try to operate with respect, expertise, fairness, and transparency, which in the music industry basically means making sure that artists are paid fairly for the contribution that they make. So these are just a few facts, and they're a little bit old. They're from last year. But we have like in excess of 1.3 million artists, so it's a lot. We are quite often, a lot of our business is volume, so we have a lot of volume versus a few big artists. And we are very focused in the go-to-market part of the business. So if you're listening to music on Spotify, YouTube Music, these kinds of platforms, that is where our artists are often present. And yeah, we also do support more kind of, I would say, mainstream things, such as concerts, but that's not a big part of our business. And essentially, our business is divided into three sections. So the smallest one is fully automated. This is TuneCore. This is actually the biggest by overall volume of music, but obviously doesn't drive as much revenue because this is fully automated. This is so that everybody, even if they're an artist in their basement, can publish music. Then we have the bulk of our business, which is in the middle, which is label and artist solutions. And this is taking people and publishing them on those areas. And the last one is artist services, which is probably what you immediately think of when I said we're a music company. So this is like all of the marketing and giving lots of things to our artists. One of the important things to understand is that we are not a major record label, and what this means is that we are, to a certain degree, data-driven. We're data-driven and we're technology-driven. We're still an entertainment business. We're still a music company, but data and technology is a big part of what we do. And another important fact is that we are present in more than 50 countries, a lot of the time in emerging markets. And our company as a whole is incredibly digital, and this includes our human resources, right? A lot of our teams are very small. They're in wide countries, and they interact with the rest of the employees through Teams and digitally. And so digital learning and digital learning platforms is incredibly important for us. And another important fact is that with our global footprint, we are also an M&A company, right? When we are unable to organically grow in a market, we will go into that market and we'll look where we can essentially buy or at least take a joint venture with other native businesses to grow our footprint. And this means, again, that we have to be more agile when it comes to deploying any HR solutions. So it's just a few more facts that we had here. And employee-wise, we're just a little over 2,000 employees worldwide. This is growing at a very rapid rate. Our hiring plan, year over year, we add around 300 to 400 employees at the moment. So we're fast growing as well. So Docebo asked me to come here today to talk a little bit about who we are and why we basically went with them. So I thought I'd start with what were, in fact, our learning challenges. So a few years ago, we were a startup, right? We went for IPO about 3.5 years ago now, nearly 4 years. And so like a lot of startup companies that are going into scale-up, we were going through a pace of incredibly rapid growth. We were a disruptor in the market, which meant that we had to change our strategy quite often, which meant that it was very difficult for us to have a planned scale. And we ended up going with a lot of different learning platforms. So we had multiple LMS platforms, multiple e-learning solutions, and that meant that we had lots of data coming in various different formats. And so what we needed to do was find a solution that solved 80% of our problems. I was speaking with the team when I arrived here today. Docebo has not solved all of our problems. I don't think you'll find any platform that will. But what we looked for is if we solve 80% of the problems, we're in a good place. And one of the other big things that we had was a need for data quality. As a company, we're data-driven, and I think that's going to be true for every company pretty much now. So reliable data was definitely something we needed. And because we're a disruptor, we are actually looking for skills that are very, very rare on the market, right? So as well as looking at the learning side, I actually run talent acquisition as well. So I have to both train the people and then, if we can, hire them. And what this means is that we often see that the talent we're looking for don't always exist on the market. And so in that case, then learning becomes even more important because you have to anticipate where the market's going to be and then train those people to be able to do that, right? And we're seeing that especially the entertainment industry is a very evaluative market right now. We also needed to ensure that whatever system we had integrated with core HR. And this was a huge piece for us. We were planning to implement Workday, which we did. And so making sure that we were able to integrate with core HR was incredibly important. And then the last piece was whatever solution we went with had to provide a sustainable foundation for the future. As I said, we were pretty comfortable with the fact that we weren't going to solve all our problems right away, but we had to have a partnership and a foundation where we were going to go forward and hopefully solve the rest of the problems over the next 3 years, or maybe more. But 3 years is a good horizon. So why Docebo, right? So I've kind of given you the context of what our problems were. Why in the end, and we went through quite an exhaustive RFP processes, and I was going back to them on multiple occasions. So one of the first ones is obviously the big thing. Docebo is an LMS company, so the Learn LMS was important. We needed to make sure that the front end allowed us to have a good learner experience. That's kind of important. And we also needed to make sure that it had a good manager experience, because we saw some other platforms out there where the learner experience was similar, but maybe the manager experience wasn't. And so Docebo has a pretty good experience for every different role in our company. Teams integration, I think most LMSs have this now, but that's also huge. Not every company has this to such a good degree. Good data, so we needed to be able to make sure that the data that we had in our system was the data we wanted. And this takes a while to get right, but we were able to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about that when I talk about Connect. And we needed to be able to have the reporting that we wanted. So we needed to be able to make sure that we were able to do our general reporting, but also ad hoc reporting. So Although my French is terrible, I do work in France. I am based here, and I do have to deal with all of the French legislation when it comes to the reporting that we need, right? So being able to make sure that we have the reporting that meets the French legislation meant that we were pretty good, much good for every other country in the world. So that was important for us. And then we had to be SCORM compliant, but not just SCORM compliant, because pretty much every platform is SCORM compliant, but SCORM compliant to a point where the data that was in the back end of the system after the SCORM compliance happened was actually the right data. Because every system loads a SCORM module, but not all of them actually do the tracking as they should do. So that was Learn LMS. Then we have the content piece. So this was huge for us. We were spending a lot of money on another provider that was giving us content. And it was too much content, to be honest. So what we found that was really, really amazing with Docebo was that we were able to buy access to their global library that was provided by Go1, which also has a stall here. And we were able to populate the content that we thought was important for our employees. So when you integrate, you don't just dump everything in there, you can go through and curate it. So that was something that was a huge advantage for us. And of course, content in multiple languages. This is also important as well. The next piece is around Connect. So Connect was actually super important. So this was another service provided by Docebo, where it easily allows you to connect Docebo to other systems. And for us, the first one was Workday, to make sure that whenever an employee joins Believe, they also join Docebo, right? That is now fully automated for us, and that's important. Because some of the other platforms we had previously, we had to do that manually with CSVs, and every time you do that manually, there's a mistake somewhere, right? So we accidentally terminated employees in the LMS that weren't terminated in our core HR. We didn't catch people who were promoted to manager. And so now we have some smart enrollments set up that basically whenever someone is promoted to a manager, the system knows immediately on the next refresh, and they're immediately enrolled to management training so that we catch that. So it's a small thing, but it's huge when it comes to making our lives easier. And the last one is Learning Impact. So that's another module that, that is provided by Docebo. And this is basically your classic Kirkpatrick's, right? But it just makes it easy. It's all there. It's plug and play. And I'm going to show a screenshot of that in a second. But essentially allows us to measure the effectiveness, or at least the level 1 we're really kind of religious on, making sure that people are happy with the training we do. And then, of course, we're able to set up level 3 and et cetera, and get that. And it's automated. So once you've set up the course, and you flag that you want to measure, it's every time you run an instance of that course, the surveys are automatically generated. So that is pretty awesome. Okay. So that's why we went with them, and we thought we'd just include a little bit about our platform in general. So this is what it looks like when you log into our version of the platform. So it's nothing crazy, but essentially we're still working on this as well. It's a work in progress. Right now we wanted to make sure that the first thing that people got was an overview of the different offerings that we have on the platform. So we focused really on integrating a lot of the other platforms that we have. So you can see there we have Coursera, and we're also using Education First, who are which are here today as well. And we wanted to make sure that it was easy to navigate between the external offerings as well as the internal offerings that we had available. And we wanted to make sure that people found it very easy to get to their own learning. And one of the huge things that we wanted to make sure was important too, you can only just see it down at the bottom here, but we wanted to make sure it was very easy to see what was mandatory for employees, so that they were easy for them to understand their learning journey. This slide may not look that impressive, right? So they were like, well, maybe you could include some data. I'm like, well, the data's not that impressive. So we actually only launched here in March, right? So the date format is in US format. So basically here is where we launched back in March. And you'll see that we steadily ticked around 200 to 300 people through most of the year. And then actually what you see at the end of the year is a pretty much a revolutionary change. So we actually have a lot more utilization towards the end of the year, and we're seeing that's continuing now. And we know why this is, because we slowly launch people into the system. What you will see, though, is the numbers at the bottom are a bit better, right? So we had 19,409 enrollments. So that's a large number. So even though we only had a couple of hundred concurrent users each month, what we did have is different people logging in, right? So I didn't put the number here, but 92% of our employees have engaged in this platform in the year. So that means that most of the people are there, right? 92% of them. And we also saw 11,940 completions, which is pretty good. And what we also saw is that people that engaged in the platform actually consumed a lot of content as well, which was pretty good. We know, though, that we have been very slow with rolling out the content. So this is something we need to do this year. So we absolutely need to curate more content that's available on the platform and publish that for our users. That's been a big challenge for us. And if you look at the participation by a glance, you can see very clearly that most of our participants actually did compliance training. That was on purpose because we had very, very bad compliance data due to the fact we were swapping platforms a lot up until moving to Docebo. And as a publicly traded company, we needed to fix that. That was a high priority for us. This is a screenshot of what the survey looks like that's sent out after every training interaction. So this is awesome for us because we're able to see this kind of data. And actually, we're able to see that we're pretty green, which is good. Green, I'm taking it as a good sign. Now, so the actual, the feedback has been very good. And you can see here that when I took the global data, we were sitting at like an NPS of, I can't read it, but 63. Should have my glasses on, I think. So, the fact that this was automated and in, everything that we had was really important for us. So, as I said, we've only solved 80%, and some of that's because we haven't switched on some features that come with the system, and some other things we need to continue to partner with Docebo to actually solve those issues. So, we have not turned on social learning. So Docebo does have social learning. We have chosen not to turn it on. The reason being is we wanted to make sure that we actually were doing a really good job before we had people engaging in there. Because if you turn on social learning and then you don't actually curate those channels, people are just going to leave and they're never going to come back. So we were like, let's not turn that on until we're ready. So that's actually going to be something we're going to use this year. And we're going to test it by actually starting it in some countries. So the USA, for instance, we have around 250 employees there. They want to use this. So that's where we're going to test it with them. And also, some of the pieces that we need is actually we want to get some of our employees to start curating their own content. Something we haven't had them do for now, but we're going to do it with some specific areas of expertise, such as with finance, who are keen to do this. Another area is that we have just switched on talent pools in Workday. So this means that we're using the very traditional 9-box approach to getting the data about who's our rising stars and all those kinds of things. And we want to create learning journeys for these people. So that's something we will do in 2024 in Docebo, and we're going to use curated pages for that. So creating specific pages for specific talent groups, and then having them added automatically. And then the last one is skills management, because again, Docebo comes with an option to manage skills, and we have also not turned that on. Again, the reason being is we're currently working on our HR architecture, and so we are currently still mapping the competencies for each of our roles. And until that is done, we feel that it's going to be a mistake to turn on skills, because until we have the architecture fixed, it's probably not a good idea to start, allowing people to do stuff as they want. So some of our roles are very specific to our industry, and in fact, some of our roles are very specific to us as a company. So we want to make sure we do that right. So this is another project for 2024, and when we get to the end of 2024, hopefully, we will be able to switch on the skills part of Docebo and map each of those skills to a competency group that we have. So in our job architecture, we're going to have job families, and for each job family, we'll have a collection of skills that will be curated to those. And we're probably going to use the connector to then integrate that into Workday. That's at least the plan. So, and the light is flashing, so I'm good. So that's pretty much like who we are as a company, like why Docebo is super relevant for us as a big, as a widespread, I would say, international company that's very, very digital, and how we've used that to kind of overcome a lot of the challenges that we had in the company. So that's the presentation. I think there's like 10 minutes now, right? I don't know if anyone has any questions. All right, that's going to be super easy. Okay. I only seem to have one mic, so I don't know. Okay. So the question was, did we plan to implement gamification? So funny enough, I actually come from the gaming industry. That's where I came before I moved into the music industry. And like, we probably will in terms of badges and rewards, but I'm always a little bit suspicious of gamification because I've seen it implemented badly a lot of the times because it was the really trendy thing to do. And every time we were going to conference, they were like, oh my God, you're a gaming company, so you're bound to have implemented gamification. We were like, actually, no, because the one thing that gamers hate is gamification. So we planned not to do that. So I think that, again, it's a bit like the social channels. If you don't have regular content pushed to them that's super meaningful, then the badges become kind of no longer meaningful, and people are not going to engage in the gamification. So we will do it once we're in a good state and we actually have a lot of active users that are regularly taking part in the social side, and then we will start putting rewards and badges and experience and stuff around that, because otherwise, if they cannot, especially with people who love gaming, like the moment you're really, really high up on the leader chart and no one's going to touch you, then you no longer have the incentive to do it, right? So we need to incentivize once we've actually created the learning habit. All right. No more further questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming and listening to me. I hope I didn't speak too fast and I was clear. Okay, thank you.